Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk. We are your hosts, Southborough Youth and Family Services. My name is Sarah Castle. I am the Director of Southborough Youth and Family, and with me this morning, my two favorite sidekicks. We have Megan Island, who's our Assistant Director. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
And Shannon Kaniman, who is our Program Coordinator. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Sarah.
Let's start with our weekly Coffee Talk toast. Cheers.
I almost used my youth and family mug today.
You did?
I did. We would have been
We could have
twinning.
been mug twins.
Yep.
Darn, maybe next time. Well, it's a rainy day here in Southborough. I admittedly kind of love days like this in my office. I love my office. It's very cozy in here. Unlike my house where there's like toys everywhere. It's just not a Zen environment, but I love turning all my lamps on and having the rain outside. I don't know why, but anyway, and with a coffee in hand, it's just very cozy. You just need sweatpants. But I'm wearing sweatpants and no one knows.
I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, we've got a rainy week ahead of us, which is good for all the flowers. They're all coming out now, which is great. How's everybody's allergies?
Pretty terrible.
Pretty terrible. Yeah. I actually I don't get allergies too bad, but I feel like everyone I know who has them is like, just struggling, which during
Yeah.
COVID is really fun,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yes.
remember this last year too.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like it was worse last year though,
Oh, definitely.
because it was all new, and so it was
Mhm.
just much more. And you couldn't get tests as easily either.
Mhm.
So there was just that question of like, is it COVID? Is it allergies? What do
Right.
I do? And
Yeah, Shannon, I think that was around the time you and I started experiencing some pretty significant anxiety on top of
Mhm.
allergies and whatnot, probably because of that.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
am I dying or is it just pollen? It's
Right.
awful.
Well, at least
You
this
had to
year.
live with it. You just had to
Right.
live with it.
And
not-
this year, where it's so bad, I mean, it looks like it's snowing outside sometimes.
no.
So that kind of answers it, like, why am I so stuffy?
Yeah.
Shh.
Right.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, that's why.
Right.
Well, happy Star Wars Day, ladies.
Right.
The fourth be with you.
May the 4th be with you. I'm glad I didn't have to explain that. I told my son this morning, I said, make sure you wish your teacher a happy Star Wars Day. And he was terribly confused. So I'm not sure how that conversation will go today, but the other thing that we have to wish everybody is happy Mental Health Awareness Month. Hooray. Megan put some fun emojis in our description of today's show. So it's a Mental Health Awareness Month around here. This is what I call it around here. I don't know if anyone else does, but I refer to it as the Super Bowl of services for our department, because we try to do as much as we can during the month of May to promote mental health awareness, and bring programming into town. And things look a little different this year, sadly. We usually have lots of different events throughout the month, and then we have our favorite event at the end of the month called Celebrate Wellness, and hopefully we will be able to do that again at some point. But we wanted to devote today's show to talking about Mental Health Awareness Month. It's an important thing to discuss anyway, because we're talking about making sure people are aware of what mental health and mental illness look like. Also promoting services that are available when you might need, when stress and challenges sort of cross over into needing some extra support. it's also about decreasing stigma, because unfortunately, it's crazy, but unfortunately, taking care of your mental health is a long-standing stigma attached to it. I think it's gotten better, but it's just crazy. I'd love for someday where going to see a mental health clinician for taking care of your mental health is as normal and commonplace as going to your doctor for a physical. Hopefully someday we get there. I do feel like this pandemic that we've been through has done a couple of things. The need has increased for mental health support because it's been a really challenging time. But I also think that I'm doing the wrong direction here. The stigma has decreased, and that because so many people are looking for support, I've heard so many people just talking openly about, yeah, my therapist said this, and so it's really cool to see. But so we're excited to talk with you about mental health awareness month, things that we've got going on in our department, some ways to take care of yourself. I was looking up history of mental health awareness month in preparation for today, and nationally, this has been recognized since 1949, which is pretty awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah. So, so there's been some really cool things that have happened out of Awareness Month, some legislation that's passed. I'm even remembering from when I was a kid that maybe you guys remember this too, that if you were trying to get mental health services through your insurance, that you were often limited to 6 sessions, 8 sessions, something like that. I would say one of the successes that's come out of this national movement and just really trying to advocate for mental health awareness and services is that most insurances now will let you partake in mental health services. What's the word I'm looking for? Without restrictions. Indefinitely, I guess. I think there's probably some that still limit the number of sessions, or maybe it's a certain type of therapy. But anyway, I think that's wonderful because trying to support the complexities of the human mind, thoughts, and feelings in 6 weeks is not always easy to do.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we have a few topics for today, right?
Yeah. We do. One source of information that's really great is Mental Health America. There's information.
They were the ones in 1949 that started this.
That makes sense. And they have a fantastic website, and we will link you to it in the chat. But they've got great information about mental health, resources, tools, things like that. And they, like us, they take May to focus on awareness. So some of the tips that they give us are tools for, adapting after trauma and stress, like we've all gone through and continue to go through it to some degree. So they talk about things like radical acceptance, getting out of thinking traps. What else do they talk about? They talk about taking time out to deal with stress. And so recently we did a show about adapting to trauma and stress. And the take-home message there was to go slow and be easy on yourself. So we invite you to go back to old episodes and check that out. But one of the ones that they talk about is radical acceptance. And it's probably a totally new term to the majority of us. So Megan, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about radical acceptance and what that means.
So radical acceptance is an important skill to have when you can't keep painful emotions and events from coming your way, which is really something that we all experience. You know, you can't control everything, and we all face difficult things. Like if we look at the past year, for example, you know, that was something that we couldn't control, that we all went through, that was really difficult for us. So radical acceptance means accepting reality fully. So with our heart, our body, our minds, with openness, without bitterness, without anger and resentment. And it doesn't necessarily mean, so some people might hear that and they're like, they might think, okay, so does that mean I approve of things happening? Does that mean I'm giving up? Does that mean I'm giving in? And that's not what it's about.
Mm.
It's about looking at the facts, looking at what happened and saying, or what's happening and saying, this is reality, and this is what is happening. This is what happened to me. And that can really open up for, if it's change that you're looking to happen, that can open you up to change. It doesn't necessarily, because again, some people might think, okay, so radical acceptance is against change. That's not the case. It just allows you to radically accept what you're facing and the difficult emotions that you're facing. And that can take practice. You know, it definitely is something that a lot of people might hear and kind of be like, but that's really difficult to just fully accept really painful emotions and painful events. And that's true. It's not the easiest thing to do. But at the same time, when things are out of our control, it can also be really empowering to just say, this is it. This is what happened. This is what's happening to me. And I accept that this is what's happening to me.
Shannon, there was a quote, it's not a quote that you said, but you refer to it often about, I remember you saying this during the early days of the pandemic about focusing on what you what you can control. It was more eloquent than that. I don't remember all of it, but that's what I'm reminded of, that there's some things that you can, but with radical acceptance, there are some things you can't, and you can be upset and angry, and all of those feelings are valid. And at the same time, finding ways to accept the current state of things.
Yeah.
Because no amount of anger, sadness, stress can change some of those things.
Right. Right. So another thing that they talk a lot about, and I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about it too, an overarching feeling that we're all dealing with. You know, I think in terms of mental health, some people are dealing with things that are, you know, really severe, you know, need a lot of help. But I think one that everybody can relate to is stress. So, and stress, even before the pandemic, we all feel stress, and some of us are great at being able to deal with it, and others of us not so much. So I was wondering if you guys had some thoughts and tips and ideas on how to manage stress.
Megan, do you mind if I answer first?
Yeah.
Because I feel, so there's a few different strategies. One, cognitively, and I think we've said this before, but there's no harm in repeating some of these things because they're so important and seem so simple, but yet take practice. So the first thing that comes to my mind is consider the fact that not all stress is bad. Stress responses are actually part of human nature. We are equipped with stress responses because they can actually help us in many ways. They enhance our performance. They are teaching us something. So if you're stressed, if a student is stressed about a test, the student can conclude, I'm a good student. I'm a dedicated student because this matters to me.
Hmm.
And so simply reframing the way you look at stress can be really, really helpful. And on the flip side, and unfortunately, I would say historically, the psychology field has unfortunately laid a not so great foundation of saying we've got to do whatever we can to get rid of stress because it's really bad for you, and here's lots of tips to get rid of it. And what we've done as a result is say to people, you've got to do whatever you can to manage your stress. And unfortunately, what that means for us as humans who are naturally equipped to have stress responses is our stress increases because we're stressed about having it.
It stresses us out.
Yes. Yes. It's a vicious cycle. So it's actually critical that you reframe the way that you think of stress so that you know that on some levels it's a natural thing. It can be good for you. It can be helpful, and try where you can to stop telling yourself that you need to stop feeling stressed out, because you won't succeed. Unfortunately, we all have to have some level of stress in our lives. And so then I would sort of say to somebody that if you are, certainly what's normal, that's a bad word to use, what's typical, what's within the realm of healthy can tip over, the scales can tip over to a level of stress that's not healthy, that could actually be considered distress. And if you experience distress over long periods of time chronically, that can have health implications for you. So that would be, it might be hard to say, well, when is the point of the scales tipping over? So Megan and I often say, we look at functioning. Is this starting to impair your functioning? Are you able to get to work? Are you able to get to school? Are you able to get out of bed? So that's the point in which you really need to evaluate, are the scales tipping over to the side of needing perhaps some professional support. And I say professional support because everybody's life is different. The variables that they're struggling with, may be different. And so, there may not be one uniform way to manage stress. So, although Megan, I know you were gonna say there is something that all of us can do.
Right. I mean, and these are things our regular viewers have probably heard us talking about on a regular basis. But whenever we're talking in our department to people about stress or even just mental health in general, we always like to start with the really basic things of how are you sleeping? How are you eating? Are you getting some exercise? Are you getting outside? So those are kind of the things that we like to talk about first, because your physical health is really connected to your mental health. And so we like to start there and evaluate those pieces of people's lives, because once those things are, relatively well taken care of, then we can start kind of expanding. Okay, if you're sleeping well, if you're eating well, if you're getting some exercise, if you're getting outside, and you're still struggling with your level of stress, then let's start looking at some other things. And then that's when we would start talking about other strategies like mindfulness, different relaxation strategies, maybe even some like journaling, things like that. But it's always great, even for the average person who isn't experiencing that level of distress, to also be thinking about sleep, exercise, diet. Everyone can benefit from having, healthy levels of those things. And so anyone struggling, we'd start with that stuff.
Yeah, and I would just throw in there too, Megan, that I think when somebody starts with a therapist, sometimes those questions can come off as almost feeling judgmental. That, you know what I mean? Like, how's your diet? And if you're a person that's, maybe you eat too much junk food or you don't exercise that much, it may come off as feeling like that person is judging you, but
Mhm.
just to reiterate again, it's not at all about that. It's just that those things are so connected to our brain function and to our
Mhm.
moods that they're super important. It's not it's not at all a judgment on someone's lack of exercise or someone's size or someone's, energy levels or whatever. It's just, it's so connected. So,
Mhm. Mhm. Right. And things that a lot of other strategies that we work on with people take time and
Right.
patience, whereas these are things that people are equipped to do right away.
Yep.
mhm,
And we don't need to wait for the effects of those. Literally, a person can feel better. It's time limited, as all emotions are, but can feel better after one walk.
mhm.
If they have that capacity or some sort of exercise. So it's a great place to start.
Good stuff. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about why we have Mental Health Awareness Month. And you talked about it at the top of the hour, Sarah, about stigma. Um, why do you think there's so much stigma around mental health? And what can we do to help mitigate some of that?
Mitigating is important too.
That's a word I just made up.
I like it. Um, Focus, Sarah. What was the question? Why do we need to talk about this?
Mm,
First of all, I wish I had my statistics in front of me, but mental health concerns are so prevalent. And as a result, if we've been through a year of a pandemic, so there's a lot of people experiencing COVID or other types of illnesses. It's very, very prevalent. So it's important that we talk about it because so many of us, our neighbors, people we care about, are struggling with it. And so it's really important that we support one another and increase awareness so that we can increase services for people. Um, I think one of the parts of the question was, why is there stigma?
mm,
Um, People are afraid of what they don't know. If we're being honest, the media has not done a good job of portraying people with mental illness.
sure.
If we think, I was terrified of the movie The Shining as a kid.
Mhm,
But I think that's like such a classic example of somebody, quote unquote, going crazy, that often people in the media who have mental illness are viewed or portrayed as violent, dangerous, unpredictable. But really, statistically speaking, people with mental illnesses are much more often targeted as victims of violence than they are violent themselves. Um, in the news, it's unknown and it's scary, and we see these big highlighted stories of somebody struggling with mental illness, and therefore that perpetuates this stigma that a lot of us feel um, towards mental health and mental illness. I don't know if Megan or Shannon, you had anything to add to that.
I also think just because people can't see it, so it's so different than somebody walking around with a broken leg or somebody with a wound that people don't understand it. They get when someone can't go to work because they have a broken leg, but they don't understand when someone can't go to work because they're struggling with depression, because
Mm-hmm.
they can't actually see it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you haven't experienced it yourself, it's so much more difficult to really empathize and really get, oh yeah, I understand why you can't get out of bed or why you can't
Mm-hmm.
interact with other people when you're feeling that way.
mm,
Whereas like a broken leg, they're like, oh yeah, you can't walk, you can't drive. That makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
that's another piece that people just can't, if they haven't really experienced it themselves,
Mhm.
have a very hard time understanding because they just can't make that connection.
Right.
And what's so cool right now is that there have been such leaps and bounds in terms of study of neurobiology that you can literally see now in an MRI, in a
Right.
scan, what's going on in the brain, that there really are things happening for someone who's feeling depression or someone who's feeling stress or, so I think that that's such an awesome, amazing tool to have buy-in for, for breaking stigma
Mhm.
that, people, you can actually see it, it's
Mhm.
not all about feelings and moods and
Mhm.
absolutely, that is definitely a part of the work that we're doing, but some of it is just, sometimes your heart doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and sometimes your brain's not working the way that it's supposed to.
Mhm.
And it's really cool, I think, to be able to show folks that,
Right.
something's going on.
I keep thinking about, I think whether people are aware of it or not, that there's this thought that you can mind over matter
Yeah.
some of this stuff. And, maybe because it has something to do with the brain that you can't mind over matter how your heart functions, but you could dig deep, figure it out, to mind over matter whatever's going on with you. And that, that's another contributing piece to, come on, buck up, you can, this isn't that
Right.
bad. Or why, people question, why are you feeling so sad? I don't get it. You have this, you have this, you have that.
Yeah.
And so it's not something you can rationalize your way through or mind over matter it. And so that's another, I think, big piece of stigma is, again, like we've just been saying, that if you don't relate to it, or have firsthand experience with somebody who's had mental illness,
Yeah.
then it's not something, that is, you can fully understand. So,
Yeah.
Shannon, what else did you ask? Well, what can we do to decrease
Yeah.
stigma?
What can we do? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking of, and I'm sorry, I need to expand my repertoire of favorite quotes, because we shared this when we had a previous guest on about, oh, what is her name? I'm so sorry. She's like one of our biggest fans. Eileen, thank you. Eileen Dawson. If you're watching, Eileen, shout out to you. Eileen came on to talk about her own personal experience with mental illness and mental health. And that was huge. I'm reminded of the quote, your testimony is the key to someone else's prison. I wish I knew who said that quote, but it's beautiful. And so true when we're talking about stigma, because with so many people, that's what we just talked about a minute ago, the prevalence of mental health issues being so common, so many people are afraid to share what they're going through for fear of judgment, or, people being afraid of them because of the way, mental health is portrayed. And so they suffer silently as a result. And they don't take steps to get help. They don't speak up about what they're experiencing, and they delay treatment. And the longer they delay treatment, the harder it is to recover. And so talking about it is very, very important. So if you're someone, I always commend people on how brave they are to share their story, their personal story of overcoming mental illness because of stigma. But it's such a beautiful gift to give to other people when you just simply share your own experience, because it empowers other people to step forward and get whatever help they need and speak up about what they're going through.
Yeah. So super, super important topic, and you're gonna hopefully see us doing a bunch of stuff around town all month long. Like Sarah said, not to Not to the extent of what we generally do, but definitely we're getting out there. So one of the things you might want to check out is the Hope Walk. That's going to be happening at Chestnut Hill Farm. It is happening at Chestnut Hill Farm. There is an art installation. What's the art installation called, Sarah?
The Winged Escape.
The Winged Escape. And that is local artist Chelsea Bradway and her family painted a bunch of wings. And those are so that they're out on the trail that you can take a picture in front of them. There's information that goes along with it on mental health and things that you can be doing. So it's a beautiful setting and beautiful paintings that you can enjoy with your family. And it's something you can do that's socially distanced and safe. The Neighborhood Happiness Project is underway. So that is doing random acts of kindness for friends and neighbors in Southborough. We have some information about it on our Facebook page. So if you have specific questions, just give us a shout out in the comments or send us an email and we'll let you know. We have a community read coming up at the end of the month. I want to say that that's on the 27th. That's the 27th at 7 o'clock. We're doing that in conjunction with the library, and we're reading The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. And happiness is not a state that we can live in constantly, but are there things we can do to make us happier? Sure. So we'll talk about that, and you can give us your input and your thoughts. And it's a conversation. It's not a workshop, it's a conversation. So we absolutely want you to join us for that. We're going to be doing a special story time with the
Can
library.
I ask, do you have to read the book to attend?
No, it's best if you do, if you can get your hands on a copy, and the library can absolutely help you to find a copy. But if you don't have time or you just really want to listen, then we absolutely invite you to come. We're going to do a special story time on the 21st, I do believe. Yep, it's the 21st for kids. We'll be talking about feelings and mental health awareness on an understandable level for our littlest citizens. And then we're going to be doing some outreach around town. So you may see us at a table somewhere. So come on over and say hi.
We were at Chestnut Hill Farm this Sunday handing out mental health awareness ducks.
Yep.
We
But
have no
not-
ducks left because all of the kids took all of them. So I'm sorry.
They're rubber ducks, just FYI. We weren't giving out like.
Oh, actual ducks.
Yeah,
Yeah, I should clarify. We were at a farm, so yeah.
right.
Yeah, we were pinning green awareness ribbons on actual ducks and then giving them to the parents were thrilled with us. Oh, well, that's great. So Shannon, who do we have coming on next week? We're picking
So
back up on our developmental
we
psychosocial
are.
developmental series, right?
Yeah, so next week, which is the 11th, we're going to continue the conversation about psychosocial development. And we're going to have someone coming on from, well, actually two people. It will be Don Gutrow and Colleen Ciccarello, I think is your last name, Colleen. I hope I'm saying it right.
Colleen
they're-
C.
Colleen C. will be coming on from Thom Child, which is, I think they're Marlboro area. They cover Southborough. So they're going to talk to us about toddlers and their development.
Is this a early intervention program?
Are an early intervention
great.
program.
Great. Perfect people to talk to about this.
Yep.
Well, wonderful. So we'll look forward to seeing Don and Colleen next week.
Yes.
And again, happy Mental Health Awareness Month, everybody. Take care of your mental health and each other. And we will see you all next week. Take care.